Twitter facing criticism after limiting the reach of a New York Post story about alleged smoking gun emails showing Hunter Biden introducing his father to a Ukrainian businessman. Now, FCC Chairman Ajit Pai is saying that he plans to clarify the scope of Section 230, which protects platforms from being held liable for users' posts.
Yes, luckily Twitter reversed its policy because it set a stunningly bad precedent. They did this because the New York Post story contained personal information of Hunter Biden's emails. But that's a lot of what journalism is, and it's dangerous for reasons that Representative Ro Khanna is about to explain to CNBC.
The principle that a journalist can't publish unauthorized sources would mean that we would not have published the Pentagon Papers or the WikiLeaks, Iraq. And the policy was overbroad. I mean, they can't say that anything that is hacked could not be disseminated if it's a public concern. Just this morning, they have reversed themselves and they have said that they won't allow hackers themselves to publish the material, but they will allow the dissemination of that information if it's a public concern. And I appreciate that they've reversed themselves.
Yeah, I mean, blocking an article from being shared, man, that's a whole nother level of Silicon Valley becoming paternalistic and really unethical here. So let me break this whole story down because I understand there's a lot of complexities and wrinkles. One, what did the New York Post article contain? Basically, emails from Hunter Biden, and then they gratuitously posted these awful photos of Hunter Biden from his personal collection of him looking like he was on drugs, and one with a crack pipe next to him as he slept. Horrific. Hunter Biden has been open and brave about his struggles with addiction, and I find that so despicable that it's hard to even put into words. But back to the email. So it basically showed how Hunter Biden got this position on the board where he was paid $50,000 a month by Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company, solely because Biden, his father, was vice president. This is standard corruption, and it happens all the time in Washington. All the time. It's wrong. It is corruption. So pretending it's not, just because we want Biden to win, that's not helpful to anybody. But Trump wants to talk about this? Ivanka and Jared have made tens of millions of dollars because of Trump being president. Do you think that that's just because they're really smart? Don Jr. and Eric too? The money that they've made? No, it's people trying to curry favor with Trump. I mean, the New York Times reported about how all of these leaders and people around the world are frequenting Trump properties in order to gain access with the president. So that's just something that happens all the time because we live in a corrupt country. Newsflash. But we already knew this arrangement was corrupt. The emails just kind of proved it a little bit more. It was not a significant story in my view because it didn't teach us much. We already knew a lot of these things. So it would have been a blip on the radar screen had Silicon Valley not chosen to intervene here. And also it got the New York Post, which is just a tabloid rag, they got it in this shady way with Rudy Giuliani involved and a computer out for repair. Still though, it is newsworthy. It just is. And so then, of course, Twitter said and Facebook said this was hacked material. They prevent the article from being shared on Twitter, which was crazy. They locked the New York Post's account. And this is a terrible precedent for so many reasons. Ro Khanna explained most great journalism comes from information that was leaked and didn't come from, say, a press release by the Defense Department, by the NSA. That's not how these things go down. You get information that's leaked to you or from different sources, and that's what makes it investigative work. So anything that's leaked, you're going to prevent that from being shared? Would they apply that standard to that? I don't know. That's a dangerous precedent. But if they don't, then it shows that they're biased. So it was just a horrible idea. Almost immediately upon publication, pro-Biden journalists created a climate of extreme hostility and suppression toward the Post story, making clear that any journalist even mentioning it would be roundly attacked. For the crime of simply noting the story on Twitter, while pointing out its flaws, New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman was instantly vilified to the point where her name, along with the phrase MAGA Haberman, was trending on Twitter. It was ridiculous. The two Silicon Valley giants saw that hostile climate and reacted. Just 2 hours after the story was online, Facebook intervened. The company dispatched a lifelong Democratic Party operative who now works for Facebook, Andy Stone, previously a communications operative for Democratic Senator Barbara Boxer and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, to announce that Facebook was reducing the article's distribution on our platform. In other words, tinkering with its own algorithm to suppress the ability of users to discuss or share the news article. Twitter's suppression efforts went far beyond Facebook's. They banned entirely all users' ability to share the post article, not just on their public timeline, but even using the platform's private direct messaging feature. Even more astonishing still, Twitter locked the account of the New York Post, banning the paper from posting any content all day and evidently into Thursday morning. The last tweet from the paper was posted at roughly 2:00 p.m. ET on Wednesday. This article, might be some hours behind or from yesterday. This is by Glenn Greenwald, by the way. In sum, the two Silicon Valley giants with little explanation united to prevent the sharing and dissemination of this article. As Los Angeles Times reporter Matt Pierce put it, Facebook limiting distribution is a bit like if a company that owned newspaper delivery trucks decided not to drive because it didn't like a story. Does a truck company edit the newspaper? It does now, apparently. So I broke down a lot of what's chilling and terrifying about what Facebook and Twitter decide to unilaterally do here. But guys, if you don't think this is going to come around and bite leftists, I've got a bridge to sell you. Under the guise of both sides-ism, all of these social media companies could follow suit. And it could really come back to bite, say Black Lives Matter or Antifa or anything, which, I know it's not an organization, but that kind of content could definitely be cracked down upon and censored by these social media companies. What was so great about Twitter, Facebook, all these platforms from their outset was that it was an open forum and it wasn't filtered in the way that mainstream media is. And so journalism, a lot of mainstream corporate media reacts extremely negatively to journalism like the Edward Snowden story and things like that comes from leaks and information that isn't perfectly curated by the Pentagon or the government. And they already act as that filtration system and as PR for the establishment. The internet was amazingly able to circumvent that, and that's what was so great about it. But now they're going down this road of censoring material because it came from leaked sources. That was the exact opposite of what the open forum of the internet was supposed to be. And so what Facebook and Twitter are now going to go down the road of becoming more like the corporate media? That's awful. That is terrifying. And lastly, if this story hadn't been censored, no one would have even been talking about it. No one! Outside of the Breitbarts and Daily Callers. It was insanely counterintuitive. They amplified the story by censoring it, and now Trump's talking about it on the stump. And Tucker Carlson talked about it on his show last night. Come on, guys. It's so short-sighted and stupid. Stupid. You gave Republicans another victim narrative here. When this story didn't teach us anything new. Anything. We already knew that there was a corrupt deal with Hunter Biden and Burisma. And the reason it's not a relevant campaign issue right now is because, one, we're in the middle of an economic depression and the coronavirus pandemic where people are dying every day. No one cares about Burisma, but also because of the hypocrisy of the fact that the Trump kids do this way worse. So they actually did the Biden campaign a disservice, if that was their end goal, by amplifying the story, by making it a way bigger deal. That's what censorship does. So I'm glad they reversed their policy, but this is not going away. And this is going to be an issue that we have to be principled about, even if it's right-wing drivel like the New York Post. We all have to stand united against censorship because the precedent is so scary.